Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another ACE research review. This time around, we're looking at another controversial area, you could say, body weight versus barbell squats, which build more muscle. So the study in question is a report by Wei and their colleagues, or paper, sorry, the effects of progressive body weight versus barbell back squat training on strength, hypertrophy. So if you ever wondered whether you need a barbell to build leg strength and muscle, or if body weight training or body weight squats can get the job done, this research study certainly has shed some light on that commonly asked question. And again, somewhat of a controversy as well. Do I need heavy weights to get strong? So comparing barbell back squats versus progressive, and this is a key word in this study, progressive bodyweight squats. And this particular research study was done in sedentary women, so we should note that, who used the same training frequency, the same number of sets. So let's see which one came out on top. A little bit of detail about the study though first. Always important to look at the study methodology. So it was a 6-week randomized control trial with 13 sedentary young women. So they were younger and sedentary, meaning they weren't resistance trained and they weren't active at the time. They were split into 2 groups. So the group that did the barbell back squats used 60 to 80% of 1 RM with progressive overload. So not light weights, and a very standard sort of dose that we'd expect to see in a typical resistance training study, 60 to 80% of 1 RM. And the other group, which did the progressive body weight squats, they utilized 10 different body weight squat variations as a form of progression. So how they provide progressive overload was through making the variation of the body weight squat harder. And it progressed from bilateral, meaning 2 feet in a standard bodyweight squat position, to unilateral variations. So that was one of the ways they got the overload. So they both trained twice a week. Both groups did 2 sessions a week, and they both did 6 sets per session, including warm-ups and cool-downs. So a total of 6 sets each per session, twice a week. So the researchers measured lower limb strength via isokinetic dynamometry, an advanced form of strength assessment, which measures strength at a set speed. That's what makes it a little bit different to other ways we measure strength, like a 1 RM squat. So it controls the speed of the set. So that's how they measured strength. They measured muscle growth or muscle thickness through ultrasound, and they looked at the glutes, the quads, and the calves. So if we're doing squat training, we would expect to see a positive response in those muscle groups. We think about knee extension, hip extension, so our glutes, quads, calves usually receive good stimulus from squats. And they also looked at body composition or body fat percentage via in-body analysis. So there were the 3 outcome measures: strength, muscle thickness, or aka size, and body composition or body fat. What did they find? Well, up front, bottom line up front is both groups showed significant, so statistically significant, increases in strength. And this was particular for the knee extensors and flexors. So they got stronger in the quads and hamstrings. No surprise here. Both groups saw improvements in muscle growth, not in all muscles. And we can see here on the image, on the graph on your left-hand side, we can see here, this is the muscle thickness, and we can see that the results were positive for the glutes and the calves. So gastroc and glute max received a positive response from the training, meaning they increased the thickness in those muscle groups. You can see on the graph on the right, this is the pre to post change. And and now on the right, that was the muscle strength. Again, comparing pre to post, and the acronym, so BBS, that's your barbell bodyweight squats here, bodyweight squats, BWS, barbell back squats, BBS. So just so you can understand the acronyms. And again, we see that there was a positive response from a strength perspective. Differences between groups. So in other words, was one form of training more superior than the other? The result was minimal. So minimal difference. Bodyweight squats work just as well for strength and hypertrophy, although this is a short-term study, so we do need to be mindful of this effect was limited to the 6 weeks that they did the study for. So we can't make too many inferences, draw too many inferences about, well, if I did this for 12 weeks or 15 or 20 weeks, would I get the same results? No. Right now, this is limited to a 6-week training period. So that means, again, if you're traveling, for example, and you're not going to be able to get to a gym, and your travel period might be from, say, 4 to 6 weeks, you go away for 4 to 6 weeks, then good news is, as long as you could follow the progressions that these researchers did in this study, and I'll show you those progressions in a second, you should be able to maintain your strength while you're away and maybe even improve it a bit more. That's great news. The one caveat from this, and we've got to be a little bit careful not to go into the weeds too much about this finding, is that the barbell squat lost body fat. They dropped from 29% body fat at the start to 25% in 6 weeks, whereas the bodyweight squat group didn't lose any body fat. But I would urge great caution about interpreting those results, because there's many factors that might be at play here when it comes to losing body fat. And the obvious question could be things around dietary changes and influences, other exercise they may or may not have done between. There's lots of nuances there, so just be a little bit careful about interpreting that result. But what we can say with good confidence is bodyweight squats are equally effective for a 6-week training period as barbell squats, as long as they're matched for volume, 6 sets each, and there's an element of progression in the bodyweight training program. That's key. So this is the series of variations that the researchers used, or the progressions of bodyweight squats. Again, starting with bilateral bodyweight squat variations and then funneling down and progressing down to those unilateral or single leg squats. So that in itself is a valid form of overload. And that's proven through this study that if you progress from basic bodyweight squats to a single leg variation, that you are on the right path to increasing your strength and or muscle thickness and size. So to follow this program, you would perform 6 total sets per session in the structure of 12 repetitions for the easier variation. So the bilateral squats, you would perform 12 reps, so 6 sets of 12. And then once you can accomplish 6 sets of 12 with good movement competency, that's important that you use good technique, you would progress to the moderate levels and drop your repetitions by 2. So you're now doing 6 sets of 10 for the middle progressions in this series, as you can see. And then for the final progression, so in the single leg variations, you're working at 8 reps. So you can see that as the exercise gets harder, you would need to drop your reps in the same way with a barbell back squat, that as the weight gets heavier, we drop the reps. So similar logic applies. If you can complete the full volume for 2 sessions in a row with good form, so there's your criteria. When do I progress? Or if I'm using this with a client, you might want to go and try this with one of your clients, is when they're completing the full volume, so they can perform all 6 sets with good form, hitting the 12 reps, then they progress to the next level of difficulty. And that ensures consistent progressive overload through increased intensity, the harder variations, not just reps. So it wouldn't be as effective possibly if we only did rep overload, although there has been a body of research that's shown that higher reps can build strength and size as well. So we won't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, we'll only ever do our bodyweight squat programs this way, because, as we always say, nothing's certain in science. There is another body of literature that also shows that high rep training can achieve similar results. However, that research and those findings didn't necessarily pertain to bodyweight training per se. So the big picture, if your goal is lower limb strength or glute hypertrophy, to be specific, either method works. You can do your barbell back squats, you can progress your bodyweight squats as well. But if body fat's a reduction, it might be, and again, caution urged, that barbell squats offer more bang for your buck. And we can hypothesize why this might be so. For example, higher mechanical loading with extra weight, gripping with your hands. So remember, when we're doing our bodyweight squats, we don't have to grip anything. When we do a barbell squat, we've really got to grip firmly to keep that bar still. Then we've got to pull down with our lats, engage our upper back muscles, particularly the scapula. We breathe and brace. We create more intra-abdominal pressure. So collectively, the exertion level is that little bit higher potentially in the whole body, not just the quads and the glutes and the calves. That might explain the high mechanical loading and thus critically the higher energy expenditure, because ultimately you have to burn more energy than you put into your body to be in a deficit to lose body fat. So it could be that the barbell variations of the squat create that situation where we've got more energy expenditure, high mechanical loading. However, again, urge caution with that. Still, not to underplay the positive findings in this study that bodyweight training has plenty of benefits, massive upsides, no equipment needed, safe for beginners, potentially because there's lower mechanical loading, it means less spinal load. So if you've got people who've got a history of low back pain or unstable cores, it might be that you start with a bodyweight training program and you would do that concurrently with some trunk conditioning to build up their core stability so they can go back into barbell training. So, but at the same time, great news is if you did that, even in that rehabby type scenario, you still be building strength in the lower limbs, promoting muscle thickness or growth in the calves and the glutes. Plenty of great benefits there. Absolutely. And in this study, progression was legit. So participants went through 10 levels of progression. So key thing is about bodyweight training, you can't set and forget. You've got to constantly be changing the variation of the exercise to make that a little bit harder. So you get that overload through going from 2 legs to 1 leg, for example. So our bottom line is, if you have access to weights and you have good technique, you're not injured and you enjoy it, keep doing it. Barbell squats will always be the king of exercises. If you're just getting started, you're recovering from injury, you're training at home, you're going on holidays, you're in this situation where you can't access the gym, don't panic, don't feel like you're going to lose all those hard gains because you can't get to the gym, because you can implement a progressive bodyweight squat training program that will absolutely work. And that's great news. All right, until our next research review, see you then.